Alright, let's start this story in 2011. So, the date is June 12th. It's 67 degrees Fahrenheit and drizzling in the college town of Hanover, New Hampshire. Families hoard rows of seats as they prepare for the graduation ceremony at Dartmouth College. This year's commencement speaker, Conan O'Brien, a comedian whose career just 1 year ago was on the brink of death. Betrayed by an entire television network, it felt like all the executives wanted him erased. But today, 498 days since leaving The Tonight Show, Conan was celebrating.
Graduates, faculty, and old people that just come to these things. Good morning and congratulations to the Dartmouth class of 2011.
Somehow, he survived the ruthlessness of show business, and with his fresh battle scars, he had the chance to deliver a simple message to the next generation.
Negativity, no. I came here today because, believe it or not, I actually do have something real to tell you.
13 years later, I'm still listening to his speech on repeat, grasping onto every word as I push through my own artistic obstacles. See, over the past several months, I've become obsessed with uncovering stories like Conan's. Artists who overcame borderline career-ending losses. I mean, we've all heard the horror stories of talented creatives getting crushed by corporate greed. But what about the successes, the artists who overcame heartbreak and beat Goliath? As I searched the internet, desperate for answers, an unusual story of a 95-year-old artist caught my eye. Look, it says here that she was forgotten for more than 20 years, had her ideas stolen by renowned artists. She made a comeback in her 60s, collabed with Louis Vuitton in her 90s, and became one of the most shared artists on social media. How the fuck did she do that? How did she reclaim her career, her art? What were her secrets? Well, let me introduce you to the remarkable story of Yayoi Kusama. Before we move on, let me tell you about the support for this video, the Independent Media Initiative. So, that's me from a year ago. It was my first time accepting an award for my films, and the reason why I can make this New Wave School video series. It's all thanks to IMI, the first ever nonprofit focused on uplifting artists and educators on the internet. In the age of digital overconsumption, their sole mission is to encourage us to be more thoughtful about what we watch. They've supported some of my favorite creators, people pushing artistic boundaries and changing education for the better. So, if this interests you, consider checking out their website to learn more about what they're doing. Alright, let's get back to Yayoi's story. So, spring is right around the corner. Herbert Hoover was just inaugurated into the White House. And across the world, in the mountainous lands of Matsumoto, Japan, a wealthy Japanese family welcomes their youngest daughter. Yayoi Kusama was a natural-born artist. At the age of 10, she already knew her destiny. I mean, not only was she good at making art, but she needed it. It was her therapy, her way of making sense of this complicated world. But 1900s Japan was no easy place for a woman like Yayoi. I mean, she couldn't even leave the house. Her true destiny was to become a housewife, just like her mother, and anything less would be shameful, a disgrace to the family, and punishable by death. It wasn't until a chance encounter with a book by the American artist Georgia O'Keeffe that her artistic dreams could no longer be shackled. As she flipped through the vibrant pages, her eyes glimmered with hope, dreaming of the day that she too could be as celebrated as Georgia O'Keeffe. I mean, just imagine what it must feel like to make art for the entire world to see, to become an artistic superstar. Yayoi knew that Japan was a dead end. So, at the age of 28, she decided to move to the bustling art hub of New York City. It was a new beginning for her career, and a bold move for a small-town girl from Japan. I mean, she had no support and barely even spoke the language. But as she took in the city skyline for the first time, none of that seemed to matter. She was more determined than ever to prove herself, and with her suitcase filled to the brim with drawings, Yayoi hit the ground running. Surviving off black coffee and potatoes, she did everything she could in the male-dominated art scene. She worked every waking hour, snuck into parties, and carried her canvases from gallery to gallery, hoping to be noticed. And then, something remarkable happened. Less than a year in the city, she had already landed her first solo show. Her infamous infinity net paintings were fresh and a stark contrast to the popular abstract expressionists. It was a great start for Yayoi, who was already experimenting with new ideas. Her next project would shock the art world. She was sure of it, using cotton and cloth to create one of the first ever soft sculptures. I mean, nobody was making work like she was, and it was only a matter of time before her radical ideas would be recognized. Today, if you were to Google soft sculpture artists, the first name you'll see isn't Yayoi's. In fact, her name doesn't show up at all. It was 1964, just months after finally exhibiting her first soft sculpture, when she decides to visit her friend's newest show. His name is Klaus Oldenburg, a fellow rising artist who is displaying his most radical work to date, a jaw-dropping installation that pushed the boundaries of his artistic medium. It was a smash hit with the critics, who would later crown him as the innovator of what he called soft sculptures. As Yayoi looked on with horror, Oldenburg's wife pulls her aside. "Yayoi, please forgive us," she says, and disappears back into the awestruck crowd. In 1965, feeling heartbroken and betrayed by the art world, Yayoi attempted to take her own life. Klaus wouldn't be the only person to take credit for Yayoi's ideas. Andy Warhol, a close friend who praised her wallpaper exhibition, proceeded to plaster the walls of the Leo Castelli gallery with his own wallpaper. And after presenting her very first Infinity Room, Lucas Samaras would display a similar installation only months later. As the months passed, it felt like Yayoi's time in New York was running thin. Her depression was getting worse. She was still struggling with money, and any hopes of breaking through this male-dominated industry felt less and less possible. No major gallery was ever going to exhibit a Japanese woman's work. So, after a decade of working tirelessly in the City of Dreams, Yayoi figured that it was best to go home.
Nietzsche famously said, "Whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger." What he failed to stress is that it almost kills you.
In the beginning of this film, I told you that I wanted to solve some questions. How do you come back from the impossible, from heartbreak, from a career disaster? For months, I searched high and low, as if I were looking for some rare elixir. I wanted to find a story, anything that would give me comfort in knowing that justice would be served. That one day, karma would work its magic and things would feel right again. But as I continued my search, a painful reality began to settle in. It sounds harsh, but whatever it is that you're going through, as hurtful and unfair as it can be, nobody can come to save you. There's no Justice League that will swoop in and bring balance to this world. I mean, nobody spoke up for Yayoi after she came back to Japan, after she checked herself into a mental institution. For all her career, she faced prejudice, impossible battles, and as hard as she fought, New York City was too busy, too caught up in its own problems to even notice that she was ever there. Her dreams have torn her down, forced her to face the tragic realities of life. But for Yayoi, no matter the pain, no matter the setbacks, art would always be her destiny, her way of making sense of this complicated world. And maybe that was it. Maybe that was the answer. Because if you can keep it together and continue pushing for what you love, you might find something you could have never imagined.
In 2000, I told graduates to not be afraid to fail. And I still believe that. But today I tell you that whether you fear it or not, disappointment will come. The beauty is that through disappointment, you can gain clarity, and with clarity comes conviction and true originality. It's not easy, but if you accept your misfortune and handle it right, your perceived failure can become a catalyst for profound reinvention.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I just wanted to remind you that this film is a part of an educational series I'm making for creators. It's called The New Wave School, and there's stories that range from my personal experiences to artists who've changed the way I create. 4 of them, including this one, are already out. So if you enjoyed this film, it would mean the world if you checked out the other videos. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys soon.